Hi, and welcome to my PlayHouse. And today I'm still playing with this Lenovo 3650 Model 5. And we'll just have a look at this nice display that Lenovo has put on this server. And we'll go into the computer and we'll go and have a look at the IMM adapter. And now that you have started this video, right over here is the like button. I would really like if you would like to like. Let's go see the features on the display. Okay, here is the display of the server, and right now it's telling us that this is a System x3650 Model 8. There is no such thing as a Model 8 yet. This is something that I've been playing around with in the IMM adapter that you will see in a little bit. This is the system name of the server, it's the server name. It could as well say FTP server number 975 something, whatever. It tells us that there's a UEFI F1 setup. That's kind of, it tells us that the server is in the BIOS right now, and that's correct. So let's see what else we got here. We can go down. System has encountered no errors. Okay. System vital product data. Let's go in there. We get the model number and the serial number, or actually they call it machine type, and that number is the same number that is on the left of the server over here at the handle. We get the unique ID, and that's about it. And the errors tells us which way we can go, and press OK to get out again. And we'll go down, and we can see the firmware, system firmware. We tells us which firmware date we are at and the firmware version, the IMM firmware version, the DSA firmware version. We will see all of that in the IMM as well. Okay, go further down. We have the IMM2 network information. Let's go in there. We get the host name, we get the MAC address for the IMM, we get the IP number. The DNS server is not put into the system. You will see that in the IMM as well. None of them. Subnet mask is there, and default gateway. Okay. System environment information. Ambient temperature is 21 degrees Celsius. CPU, only one CPU in this server, and that's 35 degrees Celsius. The one power supply it has is working at 228 volts, and it's right now using 58 watts. That's not a lot for a professional server like this, but this server is just standing around in its own BIOS and it's doing absolutely nothing, so that's probably why.
Okay, I said something completely stupid. This next button says action. When we press this, we get the option to reset the system, and that actually means that it boots. I did not know that, so I have to dub this. Sorry about that, and we'll go right back to me talking over the video.
Let's go back and see if there's any more. We are out of menu options, so we're gonna go back up to the top, and that's the server name, and just waiting on UEFI.
Okay, here we are at my computer, and today I've installed some software so that I can capture the screen, and I got a little webcam, and see, I even made an air muffler out of a cleaning sponge. Great. To get onto the RSA adapter, or the new IMM adapter as it is called on the Lenovo server, we punch in the IP number, and it's down there. Cool. And we get access to this. This takes it kind of takes a little bit every time. I don't know what it's doing, why it's taking so long. It's rather weird why it is this long. That's how long it takes. We get the option of seeing which browsers is recommended and supported. And we can press that, and we see that Internet Explorer 7 to 10, Firefox and Chrome is all good. There is some other features down here. There is a list of operating system that should be okay and stuff like that. And there is some, I think this is cryptation or something, is it? Okay, it's a lot of things that browsers must be able to do for this to work. It's for note for increased security. Only high strengthened ciphers are now supported when using HTTPS. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about that. Let's log in. I'm gonna punch in the standard username, which is user ID with capital letters, and the password is password with capital letters and a 0 instead of an O, and we're gonna log in. Normally there is an option here that enables you to make sure that you're kicked off if you haven't used, if you're not active on the remote session and on the IMM. It will kick you off after 20 minutes, and you can choose some other time periods. Right now it's grayed out, I'm not sure why, but we're gonna log in. Here is the standard screen. The system thinks it's a 3650 Model 4. I have been in here giving it a name. We can rename this. We could call it, let's call it System 8. Okay, and that will just be a system name for it. So if this server was called FTP server number 65, that would be a good place to put it. Also, there's a host name that we can rename here. That will be the name that we can, for example, ping on the internet or on the local net, and that would be answering back to us. We can rename that there. I don't think I'm gonna do that. So, but that dragged us into the IP settings. Let's go back. System settings. So there's a bit of information up here, and it tells us something about the system health and the system status, and right now it says that the system is powered on, and the system state, it's system running in UEFI. It means that the system is right now in BIOS, and that's correct. Down here we have some system information. We can press that, and it will figure out a lot of things about this server. And it still says here that it's a Model 4, and it's really not. It's a Model 5. This number is correct. This up here is not correct. We get the serial number. We get a unique ID code something. And it tells us that the server is on, and it tells us the state again, total number of hours the server has been on, total number of reboots, the temperature, the ambient temperature. This means that the server is dragging in 19 degrees Celsius air. That's 66.20 Fahrenheit. The enclosure identify LED is currently off. That's the light tower icon on the server, and we can turn that on, and we can go here and see now it's on. We can change it to blinking. This is if I was to send someone else down into the data center to change the disk. If let's say we have a predicted error on some disk, like the system has come out and say server number 35 has a bad disk, it will fail within 14 days or something like that. I could send someone else down and change that disk, and instead of, well, it's somewhere in rack number 17. It's the one with the blue light diode blinking in front of it, and it's disk number 4. And that would be the blue light diode blinking that I just turned on. Right now it's blinking right there. I'm gonna change it to off again. And then we have the check lock LED, and that's currently off. So that was kind of that. Then we have some power actions. Right now we cannot power on this server immediately, but there is an option for that because the server is already on. It's kind of says it out here. That's kind of neat. We can power on the server at a specific date and time, and that's rather cool. It has another option further down: schedule daily, weekly power and reset action. That's just as good. Well, let's see this one first. We can power on the server. Let's say that I'm doing some work with this server and it has to, for some reason, not to be powered on until Monday morning. So we can say Monday, that's tomorrow, and let's say 6 o'clock in the morning, and okay. Then the server will power on tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock and start the operating system and so on. Then we can power off the server immediately. That's more or less the same thing as taking off the power from the operating system, just pulling power. We have shut down OS and then power off server. That means that the server will try to shut down the operating system before it powers off the server. That's the nice way to do it. If that's possible, it's always a good thing. The operating system don't like to just be shut down. We can shut down the OS and then restart the server. That's when we want the server to come up again immediately. Power off, or rather, it's a reset. It powers off the server and it turns it on again, but in a nice way. Then we can restart the server immediately. That's kind of the same thing as powering off the server, but when we just reset it, it will actually boot up again. We then have the option to restart the server with non-maskable interrupt. I'm not really sure what that does. I have never used that. So if anyone is smarter than me, be so kind to explain to me in the comments what this does, because I really don't know. And also, if you're seeking information, always remember to look in the comments. There are some really bright people watching these videos. Boot server to F1. And this is a feature that a lot of people will think, oh, why would I want to do that? Well, this server is, sometimes it can be 5 minutes booting, and if you just want to go into the BIOS and configure something, it's really irritating to stand there and wait for it to go into the BIOS, because you have to wait for 5 minutes and then you have 2 seconds or something to press F1 at exactly the right time, or else it will start up the operating system. And when you have failed that a couple of times, you know how nice this feature is. Then at last we have the scheduled daily, weekly power and restart action. Let's go into that. Here we have the option of shutting down the server at a specific time, or actually shutting down OS and powering off server. It's kind of different. We can power on the server and we can shut down OS and restart the server. This is, let's say we're in a company that we turn off this server every weekend. So let's say Friday, this is a weekly thing, yeah, Friday, we power off the server at 6 o'clock past midday. When everybody has gone home, we power off the server. We want the server to be on and Monday morning. It remembers these settings. I've played with this before. Monday morning at 7 o'clock, it powers the server on again. I think I mixed up this. yeah, sometimes I mix up the AM PM. It's a hard thing when you don't work with them. We would call this 6 o'clock in the morning, and we would say this was 19 hours in the evening. And that's easier for me. But, well, that will make this server shut down during the weekend and power up and be ready Monday morning. If, let's say this, I'm not gonna say that this server is unstable, because it's of course a nice Lenovo server, but let's say we have some kind of a bad programmed application that it has a memory leak and it does funny things and it has to be restarted every day. So we can tell the server to daily restart this server, and just before midnight it restarts the server. 11:55 p.m. it will shut down the OS and restart the server so that it will be fresh every day. Okay. And we have configured a really weird server, but it's normally you don't use these options, but it's a really cool thing to know that they're there. So I'm gonna remove them again, because otherwise I'll forget about them. Okay, and we have this one up here as well. Okay, then we have the remote control option, and if you did not see how I got access to the remote control options, you should go back and see the video that I did on this server last. It's my previous video, it's number 210, and it explains how to go up to Lenovo/IBM site and getting a free trial IMM feature key to get access to these features and a lot more features. But this one is probably the most important one in my perspective. In here we can do a remote control using ActiveX client, or we can use the Java client. And oh boy, have I had a lot of trouble with the Java client during the years, but it's still the one that I do use. We have some other options. We can encrypt disk and KVM data doing transmission. It's probably a bit slower, but it's probably a bit safer. We can allow other to request a remote session disconnect. That means that if I'm connected to the remote control and someone else needs to get on, they can punk me and say, "Hey Morten, I want to take over your control," and I can allow that here. And if I don't answer back to them within this given time that I can set myself, they will automatically gain the control and I'll be kicked off. It might be a good idea. I haven't really used this, but it's a feature that is there. Then there is the option to start a remote control single user, and there is the option of starting a remote control multiple users. I think the second one does that. You don't really need this one up here, because with this one there can be more users on the server. As far as I could read, you would be able to have 4 people on the server. That would probably be a mess, but well, it should be possible. And if there is more people remote controlling the server, they will be down here with names and session times and timeout values and stuff like that. Down here we have something called virtual media mount from URL. There is a small amount of storage here, 50 megabytes, that if you press the mount button, I have the option of selecting a local file here and uploading something to the server. I think it can be mostly anything, uploading that to the server, local file, or if there's something on the internet, we can mark it as read only, read or write, and then it can be uploaded and stored in those 50 megabytes. I have never used this feature for anything, but it's something that I would love to look into and see what can that be used for. But let's go do a remote control to the server, pressing this button, the single user mode. and it will load and it will come and tell us to save this Java thing. It's possible to go in and tell your Windows that when this happens it should run the Java program, but right now I haven't programmed that or set that up. And we can press that and it will start the little Java program, and we'll get some security messages of how dangerous this is. It's very dangerous apparently. And here we get a remote session to the server. We are right now in the BIOS of the server, so with this remote control we can really do anything with the server. It's just as good, almost just as good as being out there. We have a lot of options up here. We have files. It has the option of doing some macro work. You can program a macro into it that you can load and play. I've never done that, but well, let's go over the features that I actually use sometimes. One of them is this session options, and that's because sometimes the mouse really acts up, and sometimes it's necessary to go in here and choose one of these other methods of controlling the mouse, and that usually fixes the problem. That's just a small thing. Also, we have the option of some kind of video recording, making a video of what we are doing in here. I've never used that for anything either. It's down here, record playback control. We can record some kind of a video. I have no idea what they're thinking about here, but it's there. One of the other important things is this one. When we have access to this server, we might want to install an operating system on it. And that would normally mean that we have to have access to the server itself to go and put in a disk or a USB stick or something else. With this option, we can activate the virtual media bay. We can go up here again and we can select a device to mount. Here are two devices that we could use. One of them is my local CD drive in this workstation that I'm using. The other one is a remote disk that I also have. But let's say that very normally you just download an ISO file. So we wanna add an ISO file that I have on my computer. So let's go search for that. That would be on the C drive, on the temp. And let's just say that we wanted to put in VMware. We wanted to put that on, and in this way we can mount a ISO file, and the server, when it boots, it would be able to boot from that ISO file, and we can install VMware. And I just have to select mount selected, and then the server has now access to my ISO file, and if we boot, it will be able to install ESXi 5.5. If that wasn't what we really wanted, we can deselect that, and we can unmount all. Yes, and we can select another image. It's still there, so we can just map it again if we want it, but we can add another image. Let's say it's a 2008 Windows server we want to install. So we'll just open that, and we'll select mapped and mount selected. And if we boot the server now, it will install a 2008 server. So this is really neat, especially if you're sitting far away. Though you have to have a pretty good internet connection to do this, because everything is transferred over the internet or the local net, depending on how you're connected to this server. It's a lot easier than driving 2 hours one way, setting in a USB stick, driving 2 hours back again. What else do we have? We can actually also create an image file in here. We can select a folder. Let's say I had some kind of a driver. I wanted some special drivers. Just pick a folder, that one. Open that. And then I can create an image file. And I can do an ISO or an IMG file apparently, and the program will make that one for me. I can then mount it afterwards. So that nice feature that they put in here, that hasn't always been there. So that's the remote control. I'll shut that down again. The next tab we have here to have a look at is the Events tab. And if we go into the first one, it's Event Logs. So we'll open that. It takes just a little bit. I've just been in here, so it doesn't take that long, but when I tried this out just a second ago, it took considerably longer. In here we have everything that is going on in the system. Most of this is more or less just me playing around with settings in here. The LED identified state changed to blinking by user ID. That's something that I have played around with, and it gives me the time and date. Here, let's see if we can find where I logged in. I think the date is wrong here. Here, I successfully logged in using the user ID, and I did that from my local computer. It has noticed that. If the event log is, let's say there's something useful in it, this is just not so useful. We have different options up here. If a lot of things is happening, I can actually refresh this, and it will go and see is there any new events. They will come in here if there is any new ones. Then there is the option of exporting events, and we can export all, or we can export a selection. Let's just check that. We can, oh, this is interesting, this is interesting, this is interesting. Unmark those again. But we have the option of selecting the events that we want to export. We can just export all, see what choices we get. We get a choice of saving them to a file called ELG. Okay, we're not gonna do that, but that's an option we got. We can delete events. Probably we can do the same thing. Platform events and audit events. Choose to delete those. We're not gonna do that. Show columns. So we have some more columns that we can have shown here. So we can try and have it show everything. See what information that brings us. This might be helpful. Now they have a number, all of these, and these has numbers. It might be helpful for something. And let's see, the last button is called Check Lock LED. As we saw earlier, there is nothing to check on the LED. That would be if there's something wrong with the system, and it has kind of an LED like this one on the front, and that would be lighting up and telling me something is bad, and I would be able to press that, and it would tell me what is wrong with the system. Let's say there's 500 logs in here, and I wanna, right now there's actually 77 items in here. Let's say I own, this is just locking in and just locking out. Let's say if there's anything critical, I wanna see critical, and refresh. I can actually deselect the things that I don't want to see. Let's say I just want to see critical now. There is nothing. There is no critical errors. You get the idea. There is some fans here that you can select and deselect, and the information will disappear. If I can have it remove all critical errors, or I can have it remove all information, or audit, playing with the filters. Equally, we can select a date and say we only want stuff that's 24 hours old. And we only get the stuff from today, because that's the only stuff within 24 hours. And we can search for an event. I don't know what that should be. Let's search for user ID. And change the settings to all date and search. And then out here in the message area, we see user ID in every information. Okay, that's yeah, down here we can go see how many how many error messages or information messages are shown per page, 25, 50 or 100, and we can navigate to the next pages here. That's about it for the event log. These information are typically also available in the BIOS of the server. Also under the events is the event receptions. And here you can create, we can create an email notification or create syslog notification. We're gonna create a email notification and we can call it something. We can call it alert. And we can put an email address. Let's just put in something. Lenovo alert at home.net. I don't know. We're not gonna send anything. And then we can choose which alerts we wanna send. The criticals are probably good to have. Attentions is probably also good to have. Systems, it's very critical not to send every single stuff that the server does, because then you just get a lot of emails. These are all the warnings and alerts that will be sent. Some of them I would definitely not have sent to me. Actually, most of these I would like to receive if something happens to the server. But let's just say that it's me playing around with my servers. I don't want an email every time the server is rebooted or something like that. I would probably take one of these and turn this one off and say, I don't need to know if the server is powered on and off. I rather want an email if power redundancy fails. Then there's something wrong. If I myself go out and power off the server, I really don't need an email bothering me in my inbox. But this is something that everybody needs to play around with and make sure that they get the right amount of emails, because too many is also bad. Hide that again. Then we can include the event log contents in the email body. That's a good idea. When the system sends you an email that something is wrong, it's a really good thing that it can send you what is wrong. So that's a good one. And then we can enable or disable this receptions. So we can have this done. Say this one receives emails on this server when anything is wrong, but let's say it's vacation time and this guy goes away to the Caribbean or somewhere nice, and we would be able to disable him and say, oh, he's disabled for the next 3 weeks, and we could have someone else that we could enable. Down here we have some advanced settings. Specify the index number of the command line interface for the alert receptions. Index 1 blah blah blah. Have no idea what that does. That's about it from here. To be able to send email, you have to configure something in the networks tabs over here. I have been playing around with this and I've put in an IP address for the SMTP server that is able to transfer my outgoing email, but we'll get to that. Well, so the next tab is called Service and Support. So let's press that, and we have 3 settings in here, or 3 options: problem, settings, download service data. Let's go into problems, and we will be greeted with we need to sign the service and support licensing agreement. This is a service that the server has that actually calls home to IBM and tells IBM that there is some kind of a problem with this server, and then IBM will dial you up and tell you, we have had an error from this server telling us this and this and this. As far as I know, you can actually also just have IBM call up your other service provider, like if you have some third-party service provider, and when the server makes an error, then IBM will call them and say, this server has crashed the disk, and then your third-party service provider can go and change the disk if they have access. I have been watching the service agreement down here, just found the countries down here at the bottom where you're not allowed to be in if you want to do this. So at present time that's Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Sudan and Syria. That was kind of the list. I'm gonna agree to the service agreements and see what happens. I think that if I enable this IBM support, put in my information down here, all of this, put up some kind of file transfer, and maybe this proxy thing, then if some event happens, it will send that to IBM, and IBM will contact me on the data that I've given them down here. So I'm not entirely sure how that works, if this is a service that you have to pay extra for, or if it's just something that comes with the system. If you know so, I would be interested in hearing about that and your experience. And do look down in the comments if you're curious. Probably someone will tell me and you can learn from that. Moving right along. Well, then the next tab is server management up here. And we have server firmware, and this is where we can see which version of firmware is on which subsystem. We have the DSA, which is the Diagnostics System Analyzer. I forget what that stands for. We have the IMM2, and there is a primary and a backup. We have the UEFI BIOS, and there is a primary and a backup. So we can actually go in and update the primary, and if that goes bad, we should be able to go into the backup as well. We can update the BIOS from here by selecting a BIOS file that we will have needed to already download it. So we have to download it, and then we can go into the IMM and update the BIOS. Next one is remote control, and that's exactly the same thing that we saw when we went up to system status. So moving along to server properties, and here we get, let's start with the first one, we get the options of giving it a server name. That's also something we've seen before. We can put in a contact name, location of the server, like Washington DC, Great Britain, Germany, Mumbai, Pune, like the city where the server is in. The server room, it could be data center somewhere, a rack ID, and a lower rack unit. Which rack? Where in the rack is it located? We have a lot of LEDs in this server. First we have the on LED, we have the light tower LED that's currently off, we have a log file LED, we have the fault LED, they are all three locally off. Then we have a lot of LEDs inside of the server, and this is like, we have one for the battery, one for each of the CPU mismatch. I think that might be if I should try and change the CPU and put in a wrong one, or maybe also if the CPU dies on me, it will do a CPU mismatch. I'm not sure, never seen that one. We have a LED for each of the memory DIMMs. We have for each of the fans. We have for the riser card. We have this one, which is actually the only one doing anything, and that's the IMM2 heartbeat, and I am pretty sure that is supposed to be blinking. It's kind of a I'm alive thing, so that's a good thing. We have internal rate, and one for each of the PCI slots, and one for the system board failure, and that's also off. So off is a good thing in this one. Hardware information, we get kind of the same information that we get under system status. But we have some other informations here. We have different information on the components that are available inside of the server. This one does not tell very much. We have one for the backplane. There's a serial number that might be useful for something. We have one for the one memory DIMM that's available. It gives us a date when it was manufactured and a serial number. And we have one for the power supply down here, also a manufacturer date and a serial number. Then we have network hardware, and the most important thing in here is we get the MAC addresses for the network cards. That's very nice. If we need to make some kind of WAN on LAN, that would be good information to be able to know which MAC address LAN number 1 has, so that we can make a boot on LAN. Environment. This is mostly, we have some voltage. This is where we can see if the voltage is good from the power supply. The top 3 ones, it's probably the voltage regulators that supply power to the processors and RAM and stuff. We get a power measurement here, and we get the thresholds out here. We have a lower level and an upper level, and this voltage has to be inside of those 2 levels to be good. If it becomes too low, we will get a bad, and it's not normal anymore. We can see the CMOS battery down here right now measures 2.91 volts, and the threshold is, there's no upper limit. It can be as high as it wants to, but this is a 3 volt battery, so it's probably not going to be much higher than 3 volts. But we get an alert if it becomes under 2.25 volts, and we get another alert if it becomes under 2.1 volts. That's critical. Then it will start not to be working anymore, and it will be complaining every time we boot the server. That's some of the voltages and alerts we can configure under the messaging system when do we want to get emails about alerts on the server. So we can probably tell it we don't want non-critical alerts, but when it becomes critical we want an email. So that could be an option for that. Down here we have the temperatures of the server. Out here we have the measured temperature, and in here we have the same thing. We have non-critical, critical and fatal temperatures, and we get alerts when we reach the non-critical temperature. I think the server shuts down when we reach these temperatures. Like if the ambient temperature reaches 46 degrees Celsius, I think the server will shut itself down to protect it. I have no idea what this 50 degrees limit does. I do actually think that this temperature has gone up. I think the server used to turn itself down before it came to 46 degrees, so probably the server has become better in this regard. Down here we have the CPU temperature, and the CPU has to stay under 105 degrees Celsius. Would be a good thing for that one. If you know that this is different than from what I'm saying, if the server only reboots or shuts down when it reaches fatal upper limit, do say so in the comments below. Server management, and we have server power action. That's exactly the same thing that we saw under system status. We can power on and off the server in specific ways. Now, cooling devices, we get the different fans in the system. We can press this, but we don't really get any information on it. It's a bit weird. But we get the RPMs, how fast is the fan running, and how many percent is that of full speed. But I guess the most important information is this green normal. Only if it comes out and says it's not normal would I ever worry about that. power modules. There is just one power supply in this system. This is it. There's no events. There is some hardware information, and this one I can actually copy that. That's kind of funny because there's so many things in here that I can't touch. But in here I can actually copy these data, and I would really like that. I might use this for if I had to order extra power supplies to have on the shelf in case of a bad power supply. I would like to make a spell sheet with different order numbers, which power supplies fit which servers, and yeah, then it's just a good thing to be able to cut and paste from this. It tells us that this power supply has been running for 177 hours. Power recycle is way too many. I have no idea why this is so high. It's much higher than the number of on and offs on the server. No errors. Close. Next one is local storage. The local storage contains of our server RAID M5210 RAID adapter that is located in PCI slot number 9. It does not have any flash DIMMs, sadly. We can press that and get some additional information. Also here I can cut and paste, so that's nice. We get information about the card, the model number, the number of ports it supports. This controller can handle 8 hard drives. Firmware edition, there's no battery backup, manufacturer, serial number. These numbers are missing. They're usually there for all IBM/Lenovo components, but they are not in here. Then we have some memory information down here, and we have some information about the PCI bus thing. Firmware. Here is the firmware, and even though it says in here that this is an IBM, right there, the firmware is from LSI. It's not a IBM or Lenovo produced RAID controller. They get that from LSI and they brand it under their own name. We get some additional information here, and we get some port details in here. I guess it would probably tell us something if we had some hard drives. Close that. Well, back out here again, we have the option of storage RAID configuration. And in here it's actually possible to view the logical drives on the storage adapter. And we can even create new drives, edit properties, remove volumes, or more action. That's the more action, clear RAID configuration, delete foreign configuration. It's pretty neat to be able to do that from the IMM adapter. Also, we can view physical drives and storage pools right there. We can change a lot of things here. Convert. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be all options available right now. It might be able to see that right now there is no drives in the server, so it can't really do anything, and I think there might be more options if I actually put in some drives, because right now there is nothing in here. But I think a very large part of setting up a RAID system in the server can now be managed from inside of this, which is pretty neat. And it has a log file here. You can see what has happened on the system, and there's actually 298 items on this list, so it's doing all kind of weird stuff from time to time. Moving along. Memory. We only have one memory block in the entire system, but we can click that one and we get a little more information on that memory block. We now get a part number, and we get a replacement number and the manufacturer, and we get a manufacturer date. I would guess This means that this memory block is manufactured week number 37 in 2014, but it's just a guess. It's DDR4, 8 gigabytes, speed 16 gigabits per second, probably, or 16,000 megabytes per second. Some voltage information, and there is nothing, and that's what we get. So going on to the next one, which is the processor. We have one CPU in here. It's 2.4 gigahertz. We can press that and we get kind of the same information. Here we can move the window and it tells us that it's an Intel. It's got some part ID, central. It has 6 cores, 12 threads, cache information, level 1, level 2, level 3 cache, voltage to 1.6 volt. External clock 100 megahertz, 64-bit capability, 64-bit capable. Close. Not really information that we can use for very much. For one thing, it could have written, it would have been a nice thing if the processor number would be in here, like this is an 2600 and this is an E5 2600 something. That would have been good information to have in here, because that information I could actually do a Google search on. Close. And going on to the next one, which is adapters. Here we have some onboard adapters. There is one for each of the network cards. We have one for the onboard graphics unit, and we have the server rate controller again. And we'll try and press that, and we kind of just get the same information all over. Kind of already seen this. Configuration is not supported for this adapter, but we were just able to configure that from the other place. So there's a missing link here. No matter. Let's see the onboard graphics unit. We have some information about that. It's on board, so there's nothing we can really. It's not changeable, but well, we get some information. Not really anything that is usable for anything. There's not even information about which kind of a graphics card this is. Which drivers am I supposed to download to get this working? That would have been informative. Then we have the networks adapters up here, and we can press that, and we get a lot of information here about the usual stuff. But for once we can actually press the configuration and we can do stuff in here. We can have it blink. We can choose if this network card is able to do PXE boot. We can disable that if we want to do that. And there are some other settings down here that can be altered for this network card and for the 3 other network cards also available. This is also where we can do the enable this network card for WIC on LAN. That's right there. Very nice. We have some firmware information and we have the port details. Here is the... Again, I cannot cut and paste. But, well, yeah. Closing that. That was adapters. Then we have some server timeouts. This is to be used if for some reason the server halts doing boot. If it encounters some kind of a boot error and it just hangs, then we can enable this and tell it if the server has not booted within 3 minutes, try again. If the server is booted or powered on and it hasn't, and the OS hasn't returned a I'm good within some amount of time, it can start the server over and say the server did not work. Let's try again. Also, it can enable watchdog. You will probably need to read these help files to find the right one that does the thing that you want it to do. For example, if we want to shut down the server nicely, it might work almost every time, but sometimes the operating system just halts while shutting down, and we can configure that, okay, the system will try to shut down nicely for 10 seconds, and then it will just power off. And to get that information, you just put your little mouse over this question mark, and it will tell you, use this field to specify the number of minutes that the IMM subsystem will wait for the operating system to shut down before powering off the system. So right now the server will try to shut down the operating system for 10 minutes, and then it will cut the power. Okay, PXE network boot. Here we can ask the server to do a PXE boot. Instead of waiting for the server to do its boot process and have to press the choose boot option at some point during the setup, during the post, you can actually tell it here that it should attempt a PXE net boot at the next server restart, or restart immediately and then attempt a PXE network boot, or shut down the OS, restart and then attempt a network boot. So this is more or less just to, then you don't have to be ready to push the F12 button for doing that. Then we go to the next one, which is last OS failure screen. I've never seen this in use, but apparently the system is able to capture the last good screen that was on the server. So if the server does some kind of error and shows it on the screen, it can be stored in here. Right now there hasn't been an operating system on this server, so there is no screens stored for this. But it might be a good thing to check that if the server has suddenly booted. See if there is something in here, if it told you something smart before it booted. Next, power measurements. There is a lot of information in here. First there's power policies, and here you're able to set how it should use the two power supplies. There is some different ways that it can see the two power supplies. It can do redundancy without throttling, redundancy with throttling, non-redundance, and out here it says how many power supplies can fail. In each of these, one of them can fail and the system will still run. In this one, you get the double amount of power, but you can't lose any, and it will go down. I have no idea why you would want to do this, but well, never played around with this. Then there's an option of power limiting. Let's see that. And I can actually say that the system is not supposed to be using more than some amount on the AC or the DC side. And the system should try and stay under that. And that could be used for something. I'm not sure what. Probably not a good thing to have it this low. We can set the amount of power that the server should stay under. I am not sure how it should do that, but well, apparently it's possible to say this server is not supposed to be using more than 160 watts, and if it does, well, I guess the program or the server will try and stay under that and just work slower. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't really think it is. But, well, the option is there. Then we have power modules, and that's kind of the same thing once again. It doesn't really give us anything more than before, so same thing. Power allocation. This is kind of a cool overview of the power consumption in the server. Right now there is this amount of power available, 550 watts in the one power supply that is in the server. The server is only using 39 watts right now, and it is producing 133 BTUs an hour. That's how much heat that the server does. All the power is converted, it's used for the computer, but more or less it turns into heat. The 550 watts is this. This view is calculated how much could this system actually use with the configuration that it has right now. The one processor and one block of RAM could approximately use 310 watts. Then the green part up here is the power that will be available for putting in extra stuff, 240 watts. Over here we have what the server is currently doing. Out of the 310 watts that it could be doing, right now the CPU is using 17 watts, the memory 5, and other components are using 18 watts. That would be the graphics card, the network cards, and all of that stuff. There is 270 watts available of the 310 watts from over here. That is the maximum power it could use. So if there was an operating system on this server and I was stressing it, we could see these small pieces of pie over here growing and filling up most of this. But it's a very cool way to see how my power consumption is in this server, and right now it's only 40 watts, which is really low. We have a power history here, and we can actually see what the power consumption has been. I'm a bit confused about this, because if I choose AC, I get a power reading about up here, 56 watts. If I change that to DC and press refresh, it goes down to this amount. And in one of my last videos I described that this power supply had an efficiency over 90%, and that's not over 90%, so I don't know what's going on here. It's at least possible to see how the server is doing with power. If I put in 6 hard drives, I would probably see the curve go drastically up. It would be possible to see some kind of trend in here, and you can go from 1 hour to 24 hours. Performance, this server is doing absolutely nothing. I have not done anything with it yet, so the performance is all down. So that's also why it's not using any power at all. So the next and last fan is the IMM management. And first we have IMM properties, and there is a few tabs in here. The first one is firmware, where there's not really a lot there. It tells us which firmware version we are at, the first one. And then there is this link to go to the firmware section, and we've been there, seen that. This was it. So going back again, properties. We have the time and date as the next one. Set time and date manually. We can synchronize with an NTP server instead. I would probably use that option, but right now it's almost good. The date is right, the time is not right, and I think it has to do with I'm actually not in Britain. So I'm gonna change this to Central Europe, like that. And we're gonna set the time. Right now the time is just about there, and automatic adjust for daylight savings. Okay, apply. There is some serial port configuration here. It's possible to communicate from the operating system to the IMM using a serial port redirection to the host. I've never tried this, so I am not gonna try to explain it, because I'm not certain how this works. But there is the options for it. Users, there is a bunch of ways to get access to the IMM. Right now I'm just using the built-in user ID that the server comes with. We can create other users, we can give them a name, give them a password, we'll have to confirm that password, and there is different minimum requirements for the passwords down here. Cancel that. We can also create groups. If we have a lot of people that has to have access to this, we can create groups and put users into groups. This is I think this might be a bit overkill, but never mind, we can do that if we want to. Next we have networks. There is a lot of options here. First we have Ethernet. We have the host name here, which we might be changing if this was a real server. We have the IP options for IP version 4 and IP version 6. As I showed in my last video, I have disabled IP version 6 because I don't use that yet. So it just confuses everything to have that on. I still use IP version 4. So here I have the option of changing the IP numbers. Right now it's set to static. Actually up here it complains about that now that it's set to static, we should at least tell it one DNS server. So, well, yeah. But the IP numbers are available here. I could change the IP number for the IMM, the subnet mask, and the default gateway is right there. Here is the options for setting up SNMP, and here is the DNS options. That would be where we could put in this DNS server for it to use. I'm not gonna do that right now, so moving along. Then there is the DDNS, Dynamic Domain Name Service, and we could set that up here. We have use custom domain name, blah 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 blah, and well, yeah, we're not gonna do that. SMTP is where we can set up a mail server for outgoing mail, and we can put in some username and password if we need to be authenticated somewhere. And there's a LDAP tab that makes it possible for user authentication to be controlled from Active Directory, and there's a lot of settings for that. There's some Telnet options, if Telnet is available, and how many users that can be on here at once. USB options. The operating system has this option to communicate with the IMM directly, and you can set up this communication here. And there are some port assignments, all kind of ports that are used for a number of different stuff, and you can change those here. If you don't want this web page to be at port 80, you could change it, and it will be at port whatever. Next we have security. Security, we have different options of generating a new key and self-signed certificate, generating a new key and a certificate signing request, downloading certificate. There's a lot of those for different stuff. And if you need that, they're there. I'm not gonna go into that further. IMM configuration. The IMM configuration is very much like the regedit in a Windows server or workstation. You have all the settings in here, and you can set some settings and do stuff, and you can back up the configuration, or you can restore the configuration, reset the IMM to factory default, or use the wizard to set up some stuff. But mainly, if you want to back up your IMM configuration and load it to another server, this is where you can do it. You can back it up here, create password, continue. We're not gonna do that, but it's a great feature for saving the entire configuration and moving it to another server, or just saving it so that you can restore it on this server again at a later time. Then we have restart IMM. Sometimes it's necessary to restart the IMM. For one, if you change the network ports or something, or change the IP number, it's very often a good thing to restart the IMM. We're not gonna do that right now. Then we have reset IMM to factory defaults. We're not gonna do that, but it's more or less just, it will reset all the settings that we have done to what the server was at when we got it. We're gonna cancel that. The last option in this last tab is activation key management, and we've been in this in another video, and we can see that I have installed this key, integrated management module advanced options. This module makes it possible for me to do the remote control of the server. This is only a 90-day trial. If you want to try these features, go back and see my video. It's number 210, and you can see how I loaded this key into the system. So that was kind of a overview of the IMM. There are some of these options that are very advanced, and I have jumped over them very quickly because there are so many settings, and it's so very different from system to system how you want to configure this. And well, I don't use this very much. And if you need to use this, you will need to find your configuration and how it should communicate with your Active Directory for this one, for example. But there's a lot of very unique and good options in the IMM2 for the Lenovo 3650 Model 5.
That was a lot of information on the Lenovo Server's IMM adapter and the display adapter right here. I hope you found some of it informative and that you can use it for something. If you liked it, please use the like button down here. Do subscribe to my channel so that you can see me again, and have a really nice day. Bye bye.